Hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for one of our AT&T focused webinars here. My name is Sam and I will be your moderator throughout this presentation. In just a second, we are going to be joined by Wesley Boudreau, and he is going to be covering some different strategies you can use for withdrawing from your 401k once you've reached the age of 55. After his presentation, he will also answer some questions. If you find you have a question while he's speaking, please feel free to ask away. It's completely anonymous. We try to answer as many as we can, of course. We don't always have the time, so what he does not have time to answer, I will make sure another AT&T focused advisor addresses with you either through email or the phone once this presentation has ended. And I should very quickly remind you, we are not affiliated nor endorsed whatsoever by AT&T, so please keep that in mind as you're listening along. We are a completely independent group of financial advisors here. And throughout the presentation, I will be entering some links into the chat. You will see a link to our complimentary cash flow analysis, which Wesley will go more into depth with you about, and a link to our appointment calendar where you can book an appointment with Wesley or one of his colleagues if you wish after the webinar has ended. And without further ado, let's jump right into the content with Wesley Boudreau.
All right, thank you very much, Samantha, for that introduction. And like she said, we are going to be talking about the age 55 withdrawal options you may see in your employer-sponsored plans. And it's not going to be an IRA, it's going to be employer plans, so maybe be a 401k, a 403b, or a 457. But just keep in mind, every employer plan is slightly different. There are nuances to them. So give us a call. We'll be happy to kind of walk you through that one-on-one to help you figure out the best option. We'll go through what that is, and then we'll give you our advice on some of the different options on how to process that as well. But typically speaking, what happens when we see individuals transition from the workforce into retirement, you've got that three-legged stool. In some cases, it may be a two-legged stool, which is a little wobbly, or if you're lucky enough, a four-legged stool. The two primary legs of that are going to be Social Security and your 401k. So most of us are all going to be able to have Social Security unless we're a government employee, then you'll have a pension through them. But Social Security is going to give you a pretty secure base income, whether you take that at 62 or defer all the way out till 70. There's a lot of nuances as far as how to do that. We do have webinars on optimization strategies, but you can also give us a call. We can go through one-on-one to figure out the best claiming strategy for you there. Now, hopefully you've saved in your 401k plan over the years, and hopefully your employer has made some matching contributions there as well. And hopefully that has kind of grown over time. Once you retire, now you have the option to access that. So you can tap into that for additional income needs, whether you want to take a certain amount monthly or take it ad hoc, it's up to you. But we'll talk about the options if you're trying to take that before 59.5 and avoid that 10% penalty in a moment. You may also have a pension. Not all companies have pensions anymore, some still do, but a pension simply is going to give you an annuity for the rest of your life, so a steady stream of income. Or you may have the option to take that as a lump sum and roll that into your 401k or roll it to an IRA so you can manage it yourself or work with a retirement group or somebody else to manage that for you and take distributions as you need those. And we can always go through the pros and cons on that as well with the cash flow analysis. And if you've invested in real estate or something like that, you may have that, rental property. Maybe you get bored at home, go out and get a part-time job just for just to occupy yourself. So there may be some additional income there. Or you may find you need to go out and get a part-time job to cover some different ancillary expenses like vacations, things like that. So again, everybody's a little bit different, but when we go through a cash flow analysis, we can tie all these together and help you determine the best withdrawal strategy. And some of the withdrawal strategies there are going to be that age 55 rule, because we come across a lot of individuals that want to retire before 59.5, or they may not have had a choice. Maybe their company let them go, and it's hard to find work. We have to go through options there. But we'll talk a little bit about what the Rule of 55 is. We'll talk about how to use it. We'll talk about some alternatives to that Rule of 55 and some options you may see within an IRA as well to access it under 59.5. And we'll go through the bottom line. Just because you have the options doesn't necessarily mean you should take those as well. So what is the Rule of 55? The Rule of 55, again, in an employer-sponsored plan, a 401k or 403b, gives you the option to actually access that account without the 10% penalty in the year you turn 55 or later. Again, that's without the 10% penalty. Does not mean without taxes. You still have to pay the taxes because it's a tax-deferred vehicle. Those are always going to be there unless, of course, you made after-tax contributions or Roth contributions. Now, again, it's going to apply to employer plans, not in IRAs. So if you're talking to an individual that's telling you, maybe you're 57 and they're telling you, hey, let's roll everything over to an IRA so we can manage it for you, they likely may not have your best interest in mind. If you work with a retirement group, even if you don't think you need it, we might likely tell you to keep something behind your 401k so you can access that without that 10% penalty and a little bit more flexible options instead of the 72T, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the webinar as well. As far as how to use it, Again, it's based upon the year you turn 55. You don't have to actually reach 55 in order to start using it. So you could theoretically retire at 54. Maybe retire at 54 in April, and later on that year in October you turn 55. You can start taking withdrawals that April or the May because you're going to turn 55 later that year. So that's one interesting thing to make sure you understand and remember. And we've gone as far as having individuals that it wasn't their decision. They got cut from the workforce at 54 or 53 prior to that year they turned 55. And what we've helped them do is in some cases actually roll some of that money over to a new employer plan. Maybe they go out and get a job somewhere that's got a good 401k plan. They might work for a couple months, a year. In some cases, I've seen some work just a couple weeks, so they can retire from that company and get the age 55 rule option there. So again, there's a lot of different options to kind of go through. But again, every company is a little bit unique and different, so you can be very careful about those and make sure you understand their options within those plans as well. Some alternatives to the rule of 55. Honestly, the last alternative is really the only one I want to talk about because all these other ones are fairly negative, with the exception of if you're receiving qualified reservist distributions. Again, you can access that if you're a qualified reservist, if you're having to get called away from work. But the first couple here, if you become totally permanent, permanent disability, obviously you don't want that, but if you do, if that happens, you have access to your 401k without that 10% penalty. If you pass away, your beneficiaries don't have to pay that 10% penalty. If you've got yourself in a situation where unfortunately you got some high medical cost, as long as those medical expenses are over 7.5% of your adjusted gross income, you can get around that 10% penalty there as well. And then if the IRS forces the money out, then that's another option. Again, those 4 or so we looked at there, you don't want to come across those, but it is something to know about. The last one is the one that we'll talk about here in just a moment. This is where, in some cases, even if you retire before 55, you can look at rolling to an IRA and taking what's called a 72T or a substantial and equal periodic payment in order to get that out. So what does that mean? If you, let's say you were 53 or 57 and you retired, and maybe you're 57, you retired and immediately moved it to an IRA because that's what you saw everybody telling you to do, and you realized, oh gosh, I need to take some money out of there. Again, if you just tapped into that IRA without the 72T, you would actually be paying taxes plus that 10% penalty. So the 72T is an agreement you really make based upon IRS calculations that you will actually take substantial and equal periodic payments over the course of the next 5 years or until you turn 59 and a half, whichever is later. So let's say if you left at 53, that's going to be 6.5 years you have to be taking that until you turn 59 and a half. If you left at 57 and rolled that to an IRA, you have to take it for 5 years until you turn 62. And you have to be very careful about that because once you start that, you can't stop it, or else the IRS can come back in there and retroactively penalize you. We've got another webinar that goes into this in more detail with some various examples, but it's really important just to give us a call to run through this one-on-one to see exactly what your situation is. Because like I said, if you make a mistake on there, let's say you rolled over and you were taking maybe $30,000 a year under a 72T option, and you did that for 2 years and then you decide to stop or you forgot to take the third one, then that $60,000, they can come back and retroactively penalize you that 10% or $6,000 on there. So again, it's very important to understand that. There are options to start new ones if you need additional income. And one of the good things is the last couple of years, they've bumped up the interest rates they use. So it doesn't take as much to qualify for this. But again, it's really important to run through that with us one-on-one. But again, like I said, the bottom line is just because you have access to that doesn't necessarily mean you should. Obviously, if you need the income, if you're saying, hey, Wesley, I am retired at 56 and I'm done, I'm not going back to the workforce, I'm not doing anything else, and I need to access my money, then that's probably going to be the best option for you unless you looked at that 72T because you wanted more flexibility as far as the taxes. Within a 401k, generally speaking, you're required to withhold 20%, whether that's your tax bracket or not. So in some cases, if you're in that 12% tax bracket, you may be giving the IRS an interest-free loan of that 8% throughout the course of the year. Again, that doesn't mean that you owe that. It just means that's your withholding. You'll get that back later whenever you file your taxes. And it also may be that there's more investment choices you want to look at outside the 401k. So again, that's where it's good to compare age 55 versus 72T options on there as well. But again, the more that you take out, the more you'll obviously deplete that account. So it's important to run through a detailed cash flow analysis to see exactly how this fits into your specific plan and what those pros and cons are for you. Now, right now, I mentioned about a cash flow analysis, about 3/4 of Americans over 50 actually don't have a written plan. If you can spend about maybe 10 minutes or so, not that much with us, letting us gather some different information from you, items like date of birth, Social Security estimates, your expected spending in retirement, 401k balances, pension, things like that. We can run a detailed cash flow analysis and sit down with you and kind of go through that one-on-one to let you know where you stand, and that can help you decide. Hey, I'm looking at retiring. Should I retire at 55 or should I retire later? We can show you how things look not just now, but how it plays out the next 20, 30 years. And that can also help tie into how your benefits work and make sure you don't leave any money on the table when you're actually separating service. I know a lot of people may be tired and ready to get out of there, but you got to be careful that you may be giving up too much in some cases. And the flip side happens. A lot of times we see people that just kind of hold on because it's their identity, but in some cases it may be better to retire sooner rather than later. So a quick reminder who the Retirement Group is. We are an independent financial advisory firm that's been working with corporate employees for over 30 years, helping them transition into retirement. We've got offices throughout the country, so rest assured if you need to sit down with somebody face-to-face, we can likely accommodate that. But obviously this day and age, we can do web meetings, phone calls, email, fax, whatever your preferred communication is. And we do have that complimentary cash flow analysis I mentioned. So it's really great to take us up on that. If you haven't done one in a couple years, it's good to update one as well. But if you're working from a specific company, chances are we've got one of our retirement specialists that works specifically with that company, have a deep understanding of your benefits plan. So we can go through your pension, your 401k, your healthcare, retiree medical benefits, things like that, life insurance continuation, and answer those questions you may be asking yourself as you transition. So with that, I'm going to kind of wrap this up, see if we got any questions come in. I'll take a look at those in just a moment. But before I do, any questions, you can reach that info@theretirementgroup.com. You can also call us at 800-900-5867. And there's a couple QR codes here. There's one to get into our LinkedIn if you want to follow us along there. And you can actually get into company-specific pages, so you can get updates on company-specific webinars and information we send out. And also one to schedule an appointment with myself or one of our other advisors to go through your personal situation and go into more detail. So I did see there's only one question coming through here. And it's actually, this is a great question. I should have pointed this out. Somebody's asking, how many withdrawals can I take under the age 55 rule? I mentioned before about talking with us one-on-one and kind of going through the nuances of your plan, because this is a specific issue where some people can get into a mistake. Some companies give you good flexibility, let you take out one withdrawal a month. Some let you take out more. Some let you only take out two, and some only let you take out one a year. So let's say you retired at 55 or 56 and said, hey, I'm going to take out withdrawals so I can cover my expenses, and didn't look into the plan language. And maybe January, February, you went in there and took out $10,000, think you're going to be able to take out another 10 or 20 later in the year, and you go and call up the 401k in May, for instance, or June or something, and you want to take a withdrawal, they tell you, I'm sorry, you've already taken your withdrawal for the year. You can't take anything again until next year. So that's definitely something to be aware of. So again, if you are one of those companies that only lets you take one withdrawal per year or two withdrawals per year, we need to help you kind of budget that and make sure you take out enough to cover what you need. And you also need to make sure you factor in the tax withholding on that as well. So in some cases, if you take out too much, it could compound the tax effects on there. So it's really important to review that. So in that case, somebody may have taken that out, and the only option they would have would then be to take a withdrawal with a penalty or roll it to an IRA and do that 72T that we talked about. So again, we talked a little bit about this on a high level. Again, a quick disclaimer. We work with a lot of different individual companies, and we've got details on all of your plans. We can kind of go through that with you. But that does not mean we're endorsed by that specific company or employed by them. But if you have any questions, just give us a call. It's really important to kind of run through these on a one-on-one basis and dig into your specific questions and run that cash flow analysis we mentioned. So with that, I want to thank everybody for taking a little bit of time today, and we hope you have a great day.